2021 was the year of the unicorn. Every day, another startup reached the magical milestone of a $1 billion valuation. The first mention of unicorns was a 2013 TechCrunch article written by Silicon Valley VC Aileen Lee. Welcome to the Unicorn Club. Lee's Unicorn Club was mythical, aspirational, and rare. It comprised just 39 tech startups, all of which had been founded in the US. The Unicorn Club was a quintessentially American phenomenon. Or was it? By the end of 2013, there had been unicorns bred elsewhere in the world, but no one was paying attention. In 2017, I appeared on season 1 of the Masters of Scale podcast. The episode was The Next Silicon Valley? And Reed posed the question whether another unicorn breeding ecosystem could emerge outside the US. I said yes. Everyone else said no, except maybe China. What would you guess is the percentage of unicorns bred outside the US today? In 2021, China bred 17% of the new class of unicorns, while a full third came from the rest of the world. Just 51% of the unicorns bred last year were born in the United States. That means half the unicorns came from outside the US. So we're going to look at a time lapse of unicorns 2014 to 2021. You'll notice that in 2017, the rest of the world starts catching up. Here's why it's important to pay attention to hypergrowth tech startups in the rest of the world. Just imagine this unicorn time-lapse stretched out a few years. As the rest of the world produces more unicorns, those founders are becoming more globally ambitious. They're coming after your talent, your capital, your market share, and still almost no one sees this coming. So let's look at how it's been possible to breed unicorns and build unicorn breeding ecosystems in places we never imagined. First, a bit of background. At Endeavor, we've helped build entrepreneurial ecosystems in 41 emerging and underserved markets over the past 2.5 decades. Our Endeavor Catalyst Fund has invested in 53 unicorns, the vast majority from the rest of the world, a few from underserved markets here in the US. And Endeavor Catalyst is ranked among the top 5 most prolific unicorn investors in the rest of the world. Now, back in 1997, when we launched Endeavor, first in Latin America, emerging markets were tech wastelands, unlikely to produce even a single startup worth $1 billion. Entrepreneurs in emerging markets faced multiple barriers to success: the cost of failure, a lack of role models, limited access to talent, lack of mentors and networks, lack of trust, and limited access to smart capital. Still, we believed if you could systematically break down these barriers, there was tremendous local talent to be unleashed. In 1998, I met a 24-year-old Patagonian sheep farmer named Wences Casares. Some of you here know him as Bitcoin Patient Zero. Back then, Wences was launching the E-Trade of Latin America, Patagon.com. He'd pitched Patagon to every local investor, there were 34, and all 34 turned him down. "I don't have the right last name," he explained. 2 years later, Wences sold Patagon at a valuation of $750 million. That's $1.2 billion in today's currency. Across Latin America, people started saying, hey, if Wences can do it, I can too. And 2 of those inspired by his story were Argentine Stanford MBAs, Marcos Galperin and Hernan Cazá. The pair moved back to Argentina to found Mercado Libre, an online marketplace that would rival eBay and later Amazon. In August of 2007, Mercado Libre became the first Latin tech firm to IPO on the NASDAQ. Now inspired by Patagon and Mercado Libre, 4 corporate employees leave their safe jobs to found Globant, a digitally native software development firm. Globant IPO'd on the New York Stock Exchange in July 2014. And that's when we had an aha moment. All of these early success stories in Latin America were being fueled by the role model effect. If Wences can do it, I can too. And we likened what was happening in Latin America to the British runner Roger Bannister. Now, before Roger Bannister, running a sub-4-minute mile was universally considered impossible. But once Bannister broke through the physical barrier, running a 3-minute and 59.4-second mile, the mental barrier flipped. Bannister's record lasted just 46 days, and today, more than 1,600 athletes have broken through the 4-minute mile barrier. Similarly, the mental barrier flips when one emerging market founder breaks through. And by the way, it's not just geographic barriers that are being broken. All of these are recent members of the Unicorn Club. Now, as we dug deeper, we realized that successful entrepreneurs were doing more than passively inspiring the next group of founders. They were actively enabling the next generation to overcome the systematic barriers we spoke of earlier. So Endeavor coined the multiplier effect to capture these ecosystem inputs. The multiplier effect is the process whereby successful entrepreneurs inspire, train, mentor, and invest in the next generation. And it's through the multiplier effect that tech ecosystems are jump-started. So with our partners at Bain, we surveyed thousands of startups across multiple markets to see how the multiplier effect held up in practice. Let's look at our initial research in Buenos Aires. The light blue rings are years, and the dark blue bubbles are tech startups. And you'll see, as of 1999, only 17 startups, including Patagon and Mercado Libre, have launched. You'll also notice the lines. These are the connections, the mentorship, the inspiration. Not much connectivity in 1999. Now it's 2007, more bubbles mean more startups, including Globant, and more lines mean some more connection, but still the ecosystem is not robust. Okay, 2014, lots of lines. That means the inspiration, mentorship, training, investment that's happening. This is the multiplier effect at play. And you'll notice that some of the bubbles are larger than others. The bigger an individual bubble, the more influence that startup founder has, the more lines of connection. The 4 big bubbles shown in teal include Patagon, Mercado Libre, and Globant. And these are really the ones that catalyze the multiplier effect. But to really visualize the multiplier effect, let's remove just the 4 big bubbles along with their connections. Without the big bubbles and their connections, without the multiplier effect, the landscape is barren, as if we've been transported back to 1999. As I said, we repeated this study in multiple markets. Here you see Istanbul and Lagos, and every study revealed the same conclusion. It takes just 3 to 4 big bubbles, just 3 to 4, to jumpstart a tech ecosystem anywhere. And it's these early big bubbles that fertilize what will later become unicorn breeding grounds. Latin America today is home to 50 unicorns, many of whom trace their start to one of the early big bubbles. In 2017, we began to notice yet another pattern. Some big bubbles were becoming unicorn super breeders. The super breeders were spawning multiple tech companies from their own alumni. And this pattern reminded me of something. The PayPal mafia. Okay, so I'd become obsessed with the idea of launching or seeding PayPal mafias in emerging markets. Okay, this is the PayPal multiplier effect, and the bubbles here include the companies founded or funded by the early PayPal employees. You may recognize some of the names on the right. This is the Rappi Mafia, Colombia's first unicorn and online delivery super app. The alumni of Rappi have spawned over 100 tech companies throughout Latin America. And it's not just Latin America. This is the Careem Mafia. After Uber bought the Dubai-based ride-hailing company, the Careem Mafia went into super breeder mode. Now over 100 Careem-led companies have been launched throughout the Middle East and North Africa. In Southeast Asia, we're seeing the emergence of super app tech mafias. In fact, just yesterday, I spoke with founders of 2 companies who had trained at one of the early big bubbles. And we're seeing the beginning of fintech mafias in sub-Saharan Africa. But it's not just the quantity of companies that these mafias are spawning. It's that the second generation, the talent, the ambitions, the scale is off the charts. Okay, so up until now, we've been talking about top founders who actively seek to multiply their impact and build their ecosystems. But the inverse also holds lessons. So here's what not to do if you want to build a healthy unicorn breeding ground. Whenever I hear emerging market founders or VCs pushing NDAs and non-competes or telling their teams don't network, I ask them, would you rather model yourself on Silicon Valley or Route 128? The response is almost always, what's Route 128? Route 128 is the highway surrounding Boston's suburbs, where I grew up, which led the early computer chip development industry. In fact, between the 1960s and 1980s, Route 128 dominated tech, hiring 3 times as many tech workers as in Silicon Valley. But the big bubbles on Route 128 did not employ the multiplier effect. Instead, they deployed NDAs and non-competes in order to stamp out competition. The 1990s recession hit, the Massachusetts miracle abruptly ended, and today, few remember the impact of Route 128 on tech history. By contrast, Silicon Valley's culture was forged by a group of engineers and scientists dubbed the Traitorous Eight when they defected from shockingly secretive and hierarchical semiconductor lab. Not only did the Traitorous Eight seed Silicon Valley's cross-pollinating culture, they also bred the first superbreeder tech company, Fairchild Semiconductor. Now, the bubbles we're looking at here are just the direct spin-offs of the early Fairchild team. The Fairchild Mafia did deploy the multiplier effect, inspiring, training, mentoring, and investing in the next generation. Today, hundreds of Bay Area companies, the Fair children, trace their roots to the Traitorous Eight. So the lesson of Route 128 is this: a unicorn that doesn't breed even more unicorns is just an endangered species. And the lesson of the Traitorous Eight: the more future unicorns you breed today, the stronger your local ecosystem will be tomorrow. But the real message is not about unicorns. It's about the power of the multiplier effect to transform tech wastelands into places where jobs, innovation, and opportunities multiply. So, what does all this mean for the future of the Unicorn Club? Well, since you masters of scale are competitive, I'll end with this. How big is your bubble?